getting resilience right and supporting Ukraine. I will now stop. I very much look forward to our discussion. I will try to answer as many questions as possible. I know you cannot come back if you do not like my answer, but I will not give you, I hope, any reason to get back to me by answering the question in the first place in the correct way. So I'll try to do my utmost. Thank you.
Thank you, dear Secretary General, for your valuable overview and also for underlining how crucially important the cooperation, the partnership between the European Union and NATO is. I now give the floor first to our chair of the delegations for relations with the NATO Parliamentary Assembly, our colleague Salvatore De Meo, for a maximum 3 minutes. Please, Salvatore.
Thank you, Chair. I will speak in Italian for my support. Grazie, signor Segretario Generale, per la sua presenza che ci conforta e conferma, eccomi qua, e conferma la volontà della sua istituzione di voler rafforzare il pilastro europeo all'interno dell'Assemblea parlamentare della NATO. A novembre scorso c'è stata l'Assemblea parlamentare e la nostra delegazione ha espresso in maniera chiara l'intenzione di voler cooperare affinché NATO e Unione Europea siano due istituzioni che lavorino in parallelo e non in contrapposizione. Il lavoro è molto difficile, complesso, ma credo che i primi passi che stiamo seguendo, anche con la sua presenza, vanno nella giusta direzione. Lei ha fatto riferimento alla necessità di dover investire di più in difesa. Io le rappresento la necessità di dover spiegare che la difesa non è limitata solo alla dimensione militare, ma che è una dimensione che va oltre l'aspetto tipicamente militare e include relazioni internazionali, economiche, sociali e soprattutto diplomatiche. In questo il Parlamento europeo può essere di grande aiuto. 23 Paesi alleati sono stati europei. E quindi le confermo la disponibilità della nostra istituzione a fare in modo che ci sia questa sensibilizzazione perché l'investimento non sia un obbligo ma sia una consapevolezza che soltanto mettendo insieme le nostre forze, non sostituendosi alle difese nazionali, noi possiamo migliorare la capacità difensiva e difesa significa benessere sociale, welfare, economia, opportunità per tutti. Io le chiedo se le differenze politiche dei vari paesi alleati, insieme le nostre forze, quelle che possono emergere all'indomani di elezioni politiche presenti migliorare la capacità difensiva, siamo alla vigilia difesa significa benessere sociale, elettorale importante di economia come il Canada per tutti. Possano mettere a rischio la nostra solidità. Le differenze politiche possano esserci dei rischi vari paesi alleati, le nostre forze, quelle che possono emergere all'indomani di elezioni politiche presenti, perché migliorare abbiamo bisogno di garantire una pace che benessere sociale in Ucraina per poter assicurare come il Canada futuro di pace. Possano mettere a questo riguardo la nostra solidità. Se le differenze politiche possano esserci nei vari paesi alleati, parlo delle forze quelle che possono emergere all'indomani di elezioni politiche, perché migliorare abbiamo bisogno di garantire una pace che benessere sociale in Ucraina per poter assicurare come il dover. Possano mettere a questo riguardo la nostra solidità. Se le differenze politiche possano esserci non bisogna cadere nelle errori alle nostre forze quelle che possono emergere all'indomani di elezioni politiche perché migliorare la difesa di garantire una pace che benessere sociale per poter assicurare come possano mettere a questo riguardo la nostra solidità. Le differenze politiche possano essere non bisogna cadere nelle errori alle nostre forze quelle che possono emergere all'indomani.
Thank you, Salvatore. As this is a joint item with SEDE, I will now hand over to Marie-Agnes Strack-Zimmermann to chair the first round of question and answers. This first round is for AFET and SEDE coordinators by group, and this all for 2 minutes each. So it will be quite a challenge to handle this, but we're in safe hands with Marie-Agnes.
Okay, let's start with the coordinator of the AFET EPP, Michael Gahler.
Yes,
2 minutes.
Thank you very much, and a very warm welcome on behalf of the EPP group rest assured that not only my group, but the large majority of this committee and the Parliament are on your track, are on our common track when it comes to strengthening defence and also when it comes specifically to Ukraine. I'm also the standing rapporteur on Ukraine, so thanks for the remarks that you made in this regard. My question goes in the direction, as it is clear, there is a perspective of membership, but not during the hot phase of the war, certainly, but before full membership and after the end of the hot phase, there needs to be security guarantees for the country. How do you see this aspect to be addressed? What can we already now do to get Ukraine closer to NATO? And what are your thoughts about that? And where would you need to push some member states to be more positive about that? That is the one aspect. You rightly spoke about the closer EU-NATO cooperation. And you spoke of standards that you have in NATO. Now, my question is whether you would be inclined to embark on a new thought, meaning that as we also have a single market on defence, allegedly, I say, in EU since 2011, we know how little it has been practiced, but in the civilian part of the single market, we have thousands of standards that are agreed through regulations that are binding. Now, I learned that in NATO, you agree on standards, but we see in many areas that member states simply don't follow. So would you think starting discussions on behalf of NATO with EU to have existing, I speak of existing agreed NATO standards to be transformed in parallel into binding EU regulations? I think that would really get NATO where it should be, that everybody applies the standards, because we have treaty violation procedures. NATO has not. So is that an idea for you to grasp? Thank you.
Thank you. For Sede EPP, Nicolas Pascual de la Parte. 2 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, and Happy New Year to everybody. We welcome Secretary General here around, in front of you. Thank you very much. I will raise 3 quick points for you to answer, please. The first one is how to increase the cooperation between NATO and the European Union, which is one of the main aspects of your speech. I think that here we have capacities and possibilities that you don't have in NATO, and the other way around. For instance, here in the European Union, we can raise funds because we have a budget, a collective budget, something that you don't have in NATO. You have only a very small administrative fund, but you don't have a budget. And secondly, we can legislate even with legally binding directives and regulations. These capacities, I think, that could somehow be inserted as well in your decision-making process in NATO as one of the main strands of collaborations. I'm aware that there's quite a number of strands of work that we are collaborating already, more than 60, 65, 66, but I think that this legislative capacity and the budgetary capacity of the European Union should be somehow inserted as well in your decision-making process in NATO. First question. The second one is capacity planning. I think that now that we have a new commissioner for the first time for defence in the European Union, he will be asked to develop plans. He's going to present the white paper for defence within the next 100 days together with the High Representative. And one of the main items will be the capacity planning for our military industry. How do you intend to avoid duplications concerning this very important thing? The capacity planning in NATO is very well oiled, is working properly well, and you have a great experience now. And the third one is how to shorten the time of developing new weapon systems. I mean, so far the average time is 15 years, 15 years, since a project system is designed until it is totally operational. I think that we cannot continue with this. How do you intend to shorten up this time to develop new weapon systems? Thank you very much.
Okay, for S&D, the AFET, I have been told that nobody will be there. So if there are anybody, okay. Tony.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Secretary General, I would like to welcome you to our House on behalf of S&D in your new role in this very timely moment, 1 week before President Trump takes over. In line with the NATO strategic concept, I echo that NATO enlargement has been a historic success. It has strengthened our alliance and contributed to peace and stability. You have said recently, and you repeated this afternoon, that we face a growing number of challenges globally, from a more aggressive Russia to terrorism, to strategic competition with China, as well as increasing alignment of China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran. But beyond this, let me extend my interest to our immediate neighborhood. Secretary General, last year you have visited Srebrenica in Bosnia and Herzegovina. As experienced leader and former Prime Minister, you are certainly very well acquainted with security challenges in the Western Balkans, which was once called the power keg of Europe. Therefore, I would use the opportunity to ask you two questions. How do you see the role of hybrid warfare, not only in the EU, but also in the Western Balkans, where we have seen increased activity by Russia, particularly with disinformation, as in the case of recently opened Russia Today TV in Serbia? And how would you assess the security situation in the Western Balkans in general, and what would be some initiatives or activities you are planning to conduct as a NATO Secretary General? Thank you in advance.
Thank you very much. And S&D Sede, Yanis?
Here, Mr. Secretary General. Thank you very much for your presence in our committee, and I wish you every success in your mandate. You take over at the period when we have the war in Ukraine, war in Gaza, regime change in Syria, and the increase in hybrid attacks on the infrastructure of members of the Union and NATO, and even attempts to interfere in the democratic functions of the countries. At this critical time for Europe, we are exactly 1 week before President Trump returns to the White House. Last week's interview about his plans for acquisitions and annexations against 2 NATO members, Denmark and Canada, was shocking to say the least. In this very difficult context, I would like to ask you how you intend to ensure the unity of the alliance and the protection of the border integrity of all member states. I would also like to ask you to tell us about the cooperation between the European Union and NATO in addressing the hybrid threats that many member states are facing, and more generally, how do you see defence cooperation between the European Union and NATO? Would you be supportive of a more autonomous European defence? Finally, I would like to ask you about defence spending. What would be for you an adequate target instead of 2% of GDP? Wouldn't it be more effective to focus on making better use of defence spending than to ask for its continued increase? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For AFET Patriots, Jordan Bardella.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Monsieur le Secrétaire Général, merci de votre présence devant cette commission. Moi, je souhaiterais vous entendre sur le rôle d'un État clé de l'OTAN qu'est la Turquie. Entre intimidation frontalière à l'égard de la Grèce, sa politique de réarmement drastique et son rapprochement avec Moscou, la Turquie redéfinit son rôle sur la scène internationale en face d'une Europe bien naïve quant à la marche du monde. D'un côté, la Turquie cherche à endormir l'Occident à travers sa participation à l'OTAN et la ratification d'accords de coopération en matière migratoire. De l'autre, ses ambitions expansionnistes et sa politique agressive en Méditerranée la placent parmi ces puissances qui ne nous veulent pas nécessairement du bien. Pour le président Erdogan, l'OTAN est un outil d'influence de ses propres ambitions, lui qui rêve de faire de son pays une porte de l'Est et un pont en mesure de regarder à la fois vers Moscou et à la fois vers l'OTAN. Le récent refus d'Ankara de participer à l'exercice aérien de l'Alliance en Grèce en septembre dernier doit, je le crois, attirer notre attention. Ce geste n'est pas isolé et s'inscrit dans la volonté d'asseoir une ambition régionale, en oubliant parfois ses obligations vis-à-vis de l'Alliance dont la Turquie est censée partager les valeurs. Monsieur le Secrétaire général, la liste des provocations turques est longue comme le bras. Je me permets de rappeler que la Turquie a joué un rôle actif dans la crise migratoire, aux frontières de l'Europe en y acheminant délibérément des réfugiés syriens, qu'elle entretient les plus grandes ambiguïtés à l'égard du fondamentalisme islamiste. Elle s'est vivement opposée à la France sur le plan diplomatique en 2020, a usé d'un chantage inacceptable à notre égard concernant l'adhésion de la Suède à l'OTAN. Elle reste le seul État de l'Alliance à ne pas s'associer aux sanctions contre la Russie. Elle continue de violer la souveraineté territoriale de Chypre et de la Grèce en mer Égée, y empêchant le forage d'entreprises européennes. Et en tant que deuxième armée de l'OTAN, la Turquie se sait incontournable. La question que je souhaiterais donc vous poser est simple. Comment appréhendez-vous ce double jeu de la Turquie au sein de l'Alliance Atlantique? Je vous remercie.
Merci für Sede, Pierre Romain.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Juste ici.
Okay.
Et je vais continuer en français. Monsieur le Secrétaire général, le stratégiste français Hervé Couteau-Bégari écrivait « L'OTAN est cette alliance dans laquelle tous les membres sont égaux, mais l'un est plus égal que les autres. Il se trouve aujourd'hui qu'à la tête de ce pays plus égal que les autres, il y a désormais un homme qui a l'intention d'afficher au grand jour les ambitions de l'Amérique, de maximiser ses intérêts, y compris, parfois, aux dépens de ses alliés. Il y a quelques jours, dans une interview avec l'agence de presse allemande dpa, vous avez déclaré, Monsieur le Secrétaire général, qu'il serait souhaitable que les États-Unis libéralisent leur marché de la défense afin que les Européens puissent s'approvisionner plus facilement. Autrement dit, les Européens doivent céder au chantage américain et alourdir encore leur dépendance industrielle et technologique. Ce serait, selon vous et selon d'autres, un moyen d'obtenir la paix au sein de l'Alliance Atlantique. Pourtant, la guerre d'Ukraine sur le sol européen a montré l'importance d'adopter en Europe une logique industrielle de masse, de stock. Cette guerre d'attrition montre aussi que la dépendance à la production et aux livraisons d'une puissance extérieure est un risque, car on dépend alors de décisions politiques extérieures sur lesquelles nous n'avons pas de prise. À l'inverse de ce discours de concession, il est dans l'intérêt des États européens de tenir un discours d'affirmation. C'est d'ailleurs ce que souhaitent les équipes de Trump. Écoutons ce que dit le vice-président J.D. Vance lorsqu'il exhorte les États européens à ne plus être des États clients, mais devenir des alliés forts qui se respectent et se font respecter sur le continent. J'aimerais donc vous demander, Monsieur le Secrétaire général, comment vous concevez l'idée d'un pilier européen au sein de l'OTAN? Est-ce l'idée d'un superconsommateur européen faisant ses provisions de l'autre côté de l'Atlantique pour maintenir sa sympathie? Ou est-ce l'idée d'un rééquilibrage qui passe par une remontée en puissance industrielle en Europe, davantage de dépenses en Europe, et peut-être plus tard par un partage plus équitable des responsabilités? Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much. For AFET ECR, Adam Ilan.
Here. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. It is a privilege to welcome you, Mr. Secretary General, to our committee today. Your leadership at NATO comes at a pivotal time when Europe and the transatlantic community face challenges of unprecedented complexity and urgency. The Russian aggression against Ukraine has shattered the post-Cold War security order and reminded us that peace in Europe cannot be taken for granted. NATO's role in providing collective security, deterring aggression and projecting stability has never been more critical. Tomorrow's summit of Baltic Sea NATO countries highlights the growing importance of the Baltic region in the strategic planning. Russia remains the most immediate and significant threat to NATO's eastern flank. The militarization of Kaliningrad, the use of hybrid tactics in Belarus, and the shadow fleet operating in the Baltic Sea pose direct challenges to Poland and the Baltic states. These actions are part of Russia's broader strategy to destabilize the region and weaken NATO's cohesion. So my question to you would be, what concrete actions is NATO planning to counter these specific Russian threats, particularly in terms of enhanced forward presence, rapid deployment capabilities, and coordinated hybrid response strategies? How is NATO preparing for potential escalation scenarios, including unconventional tactics such as cyber attacks or energy weaponization in this region? And last, we note with great interest NATO's recent assumption of air defense operation in Poland from the United States. This transaction underscores Europe's growing role in securing its own defense and supporting Ukraine. Poland's logistic hubs are critical in ensuring the flow of military equipment and humanitarian aid to Ukraine, making their defense a top priority. What are NATO's plans to further foster air defense capabilities in Poland and broader eastern flank, particularly now as threats are evolving? Thank you.
Thank you very much. For CDICA, Reinis.
Labdien, ģenerālsekretār kungs, paldies par jūsu
brīnišķīgo stāstījumu. Grūti tam ir nepiekrist, ja vien neņem vērā, ka drīz būs 3 pilni gadi kopš pilna mēroga iebrukuma Ukrainā, 11 gadi kopš karš tur vispār notiek un arī 11 gadi kopš, teiksim, atklātiem, jums nepatīk vārds hibrīda iebrukumiem, jūs to saucat par sabotāžu vai, manuprāt, valsts atbalstītu terorismu dažādās pasaules malās, un šis laiks ir diezgan ātri iet uz priekšu. Man ir tāds jautājums, vai varbūt jums ir kāds redzējums, kas mums traucē attīstīties un iet uz priekšu ātrāk, kļūt stiprākiem, un arī kādi konkrēti varbūt jūs redzat risinājums, kā tieši cīnīties ar šo sabotāžu vai valstu atbalstīto terorismu, jo skaidrs, ka kopš 49. gada ir mainījusies izpratnē par to, kas ir apdraudējumi, un mēs visi saprotam, ka tie vairs nav tikai tieši bruņoti iebrukumi, bet arī dažādi citu veida uzbrukumi. Un vai jums ir kāds varbūt jau konkrēts redzējums, ko NATO varētu darīt vai ko mainīt, lai pret to cīnītos? Paldies!
Vielen Dank voor AFET Renew, Hilde.
Wel, dankjewel. En beste Mark, allereerst, hier zit ik, allereerst heel erg bedankt voor uw energie en het enthousiasme dat je brengt in de NAVO-hoofdkwartier en gefeliciteerd. We verwachten ook vanuit België heel erg veel van u als nieuwe secretaris-generaal. En ik vind dat we met Europa eigenlijk vandaag samen op het Kennedy-punt gekomen zijn, op het punt van defensie. Ask not what NATO can do for us, but ask what Europe can do for NATO. En ik moet u zeggen, de kritiek van Trump is vaak niet de meest verfijnde. Zeker niet op het vlak van de NAVO is ze helaas terecht, moeten we toch wel zeggen. En om dit probleem aan te pakken hebben wij toch wel een heel duidelijke eigen Europese militaire dynamiek nodig. Mark, ik ben een van degenen die hier in het huis al jaren pleit voor een Europese defensie en zelfs wat mij betreft een Europees leger. Maar ik moet u zeggen, als ik dat hier breng, dan hoor je toch heel fel vanuit de NAVO-kringen ook, pas op, niet te Europees, zet geen concurrentie op met die NAVO-structuren. Terwijl, ik begrijp die waarschuwing wel, maar anderzijds, als de NAVO wil overleven, zullen we sterke Europese structuren nodig hebben. En ik richt mij nu tot u als liberaal. U weet heel goed, als we willen dat de Europeanen akkoord gaan, dat we meer gaan investeren in defensie, naar die 2, 3, 4%, dan gaat er ook iets moeten terugvloeien. Dan verwachten ze Europese tewerkstelling. Ze verwachten Europese defensieindustrie. En u bent een bruggenbouwer. De reden dat u daar zit, is dat u een bruggenbouwer bent. En ik stel u eigenlijk maar één heel concrete vraag. Kan u alsjeblieft de Amerikanen masseren dat ze niet zo'n angst hebben van die ontwikkeling van die Europese defensie, van die defensieindustrie, van die Europese aankopen, zodanig dat we met een sterk Europa de NAVO kunnen versterken met de VS en met Turkije. Dat is de rol die ik van u verwacht. Dank u wel.
Thank you very much. And now for CD Renew, Malik. Come on.
Ja. Goed voorbeeld, dat volgen. Dus dat betekent dat ik het ook gewoon in het Nederlands ga doen als de coördinator voor Renew het ook in het Nederlands doet. Allereerst een bijzonder welkom natuurlijk secretary-generaal van de NAVO, de Rutte, hier vandaag in het Europees Parlement. Fantastisch om u in deze rol hier ook te zien. In tijden waar het natuurlijk niet de wereld aan het veranderen is. En de uitdagingen eigenlijk alleen maar groter zijn. Maar ja, ik geloof dat deze rol u het beste past. Dus dat komt heel goed. Daar heb ik alle vertrouwen in. Allereerst wil ik ook zeggen dat ik het sowieso bijzonder vind dat u hier vandaag bent. Als eerste dag van deze politieke aanpak. U heeft aangegeven dat u meer in contact ook wil met het Europese parlement. Omdat we het uiteindelijk samen elkaar ook daarin moeten en kunnen versterken. Op dat ene punt, misschien als het gaat om die bestedingen, de 2% norm, daar wisselen nog steeds verschillende lidstaten in. We hoeven aan Baltische lidstaten niet uit te leggen hoeveel geld je moet investeren in defensie als het gaat om begrotingen. Sommige West-Europese landen blijven nog best wel achter. Wat zou nou een voorstel kunnen zijn voor het Europese parlement om daar veel steviger en sterker te kunnen zijn, ook naar die lidstaten, om meer te gaan investeren in defensie? U had zelf in uw inleiding had u het er ook over dat de EU ook een mogelijkheid heeft om onder artikel 5 tegen nieuwe dreigingen op te treden, samen met de NAVO. En moet er dan ook niet eigenlijk een soort nieuwe norm komen om tot een minimum inspanning te doen om die nieuwe dreigingen zoals sabotage en destabilisatie tegen te gaan? Want die 2% norm is natuurlijk het materiële norm, de materiële investeringen die aan gaande is. Maar als je ook kijkt naar die andere dreigingen, zou er ook niet veel meer samengewerkt moeten worden en toegewerkt moeten worden naar minimumnormen om ook daar voldoende financiële middelen te hebben om uiteindelijk die dreigingen met elkaar ook tegen te gaan. Dank u wel.
Perfect. Now for AFID Greens, Hannah Neumann.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Mr. Secretary General, it's good you're here. And I think we need a closer and more collegial cooperation between EU and NATO more than ever. I'd say even more so after January 20. But this leads us to a number of questions. First one on the EU Defence Union. We are just about to start our discussion on the EU White Book for Defence. Defining the abstract concept of the EU Defence Union, I wonder how you think the EU Defence Union could best align and fit into NATO structures, and if you could suggest a separation of tasks. What is for EU and what is for NATO? How would that look like? Second question, and you said it yourself, spending more on defence. It is clear that member states need to step up defence spending. I'm not sure if the discussion on percentage is of good value, especially when GDPs might shrink. So it would be interesting for us to get an overall figure of what you think EU member states should be spending in just number of billions of euros in your regard. And as the former leader of the Frugals in the European Union and now SecGen of NATO, I'm wondering what you think about Eurobonds as a possible way forward. On the upcoming Baltic summit, we are seeing a growing number of Russian Jews name them destabilizing attacks in the Baltic Sea. Is the current setup of NATO Task Force Baltic good enough, or could you give us a sneak preview of what you're discussing tomorrow? And my last question, how do you intend to deal with intra-NATO security threats, such as Trump threatening to annex Canada?
Thank you very much. And now for CD Greens, Martins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Secretary General, for being here in Parliament. So during Donald Trump's presidency, he raised the possibility of the United States leaving NATO and even threatened Denmark over Greenland. So now, with a future US President-elect potentially taking a similar stance, many Europeans are questioning whether we can continue to rely on the US for our security. So do you believe Europe should take stronger steps to defend itself in case the US reduce its commitment to NATO in the future? And what specific actions should European countries take now to prepare for such scenario? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And for AFED, the left, Mark Botenga.
Merci, Monsieur Rutte. Vous êtes secrétaire général de l'OTAN. Évidemment, je viens de quitter la rue où des dizaines de milliers de travailleurs et de syndicats belges ont manifesté contre les plans, notamment en Belgique, mais qu'on voit partout en Europe, de couper dans les pensions, de couper dans les services publics. Et alors, j'arrive ici face au secrétaire général de l'OTAN qui me dit, effectivement, nous devons investir davantage dans la défense, c'est une question de priorité et ça fait qu'il y aura moins d'argent pour les pensions et pour l'enseignement, pour les hôpitaux. Alors je dois évidemment relayer alors la question que se posent les gens, c'est-à-dire aujourd'hui, d'abord l'OTAN dit qu'il faut dépenser 2% du produit intérieur brut pour la défense, maintenant vous parlez des 4%, Donald Trump, président élu des États-Unis, parle déjà de 5%. Tout ça, pour la Belgique, ça voudrait dire, par exemple, qu'on passerait de 7 milliards annuels actuellement vers 30 milliards environ. Vous imaginez bien qu'entre-temps, on fait des coupes dans le social, mais on investit massivement dans le militaire. Les gens se disent, oula, Ça, c'est quand même inacceptable, mais peut-être c'est nécessaire. Ma question, c'est, j'ai regardé, l'OTAN dépense aujourd'hui environ, annuellement, les dépenses en défense des pays membres, c'est 1185 milliards. La Russie, principale menace considérée sur le flanc Est, c'est plus ou moins 10 fois moins. Je pense qu'on est à 126 milliards. À ce niveau-là, pourquoi est-ce qu'avec tout l'argent que nous dépensons en défense, on n'est pas capable de se défendre aujourd'hui? C'est ça la question que me posent les gens. Est-ce que c'est des politiciens complètement incompétents qui ne savent pas gérer ces budgets? Est-ce qu'en réalité, c'est parce que cet argent est mal dépensé? Est-ce que ça va dans les caisses des actionnaires des grandes multinationales? C'est quoi? Pourquoi est-ce qu'avec ce budget qui est tellement plus important que le reste du monde, on n'arriverait pas à se défendre aujourd'hui? Merci.
Vielen Dank. For the AFET ESN Stanislav Stoyanov. Isn't here? Okay, then for the SEDE. Oh, sorry, where are you? Oh.
Non, excusez-moi, on avait le Left CD aussi.
Yes, Potenga said he is here for both. But anyway, ask your okay. Anyway, ask your questions and come.
It never gets.
Okay, afterwards. First of all, Stanislav for.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure. I think we informed the Secretariat that there's one speaker for AFET left and one speaker for SEDE left, like for all the other groups. I'm not too sure why that would be different now. Thank you.
Okay, first of all, I just called for Stanislav. Where is Stanislav?
Stanislav is not here.
He's not here. Okay, that makes it easier. So take your 2 minutes and go ahead. And then afterwards, Hans Neuhoff. Is Hans Neuhoff here? Okay, then the floor is yours. You can start. Come on, 2 minutes.
Thank you. I'll speak in Bulgarian. В края на 90-те години на миналия век големият американски дипломат Джордж Кенън определи предстоящото разширяване на НАТО като груба грешка с епични размери. Джордж Кенън е създателя на политиката на сдържането на Съветския съюз и познаваше руснаците по-добре от всеки друг. Той прекрасно разбираше колко е вредно да бъде дразнена Русия. За жалост, никой представител на колективния Запад не го чу. НАТО трябваше да се разпусне, както беше разпуснат Варшавския договор. А вместо това пактът продължи с безумното си разширяване. И без изобщо да пита народите на въпросните държави, дали искат страните им да се присъединят към него. Нас в България никой от управляващите не ни попита дали искаме да членуваме в НАТО или не. Сигурен съм, че ако сега се проведе референдум по въпроса, повечето българи ще са против членството на България в този пакт. Защото да си член на НАТО днес е гаранция не за сигурност, а за въвличането в поредната касапница. Именно стремежът на пакта да погълне Украйна и да създаде свои бази на нейна територия е основната причина за войната днес в тази страна. Така че колкото по-дълго съществува НАТО, толкова по-дълго ще съществува опасността от Трета световна война. Благодаря.
Marina, yeah. Thank you very much. First of all, Mark Potenga, first of all, he said for both, but no problem. So now, Marie Mesur. For the left.
Merci beaucoup.
Okay.
Merci Madame la Présidente, Monsieur le Secrétaire Général. Alors, il paraît que vous êtes l'homme qui murmure à l'oreille de Donald Trump. Je ne sais pas si vous murmurez effectivement à son oreille, mais néanmoins, en tant que secrétaire général de l'OTAN, vous avez probablement un avis sur certaines de ses déclarations en tant que président des États-Unis d'Amérique. Vous êtes bien entendu familier avec l'article 5 du traité de l'Atlantique Nord qui stipule qu'une attaque armée contre un État membre de ce traité sera considérée comme une attaque armée dirigée contre l'ensemble des États membres de ce traité, chacun prenant alors des mesures nécessaires pour venir en aide aux pays attaqués. Monsieur le secrétaire général, le Canada et les États-Unis sont des États membres de l'OTAN. Or, ces deux pays sont menacés par la velléité expansionniste de Donald Trump. Ce dirigeant d'extrême droite et ses alliés multiplient les politiques de déstabilisation et d'ingérence à l'encontre d'autres États membres de l'OTAN, je pense notamment à l'Allemagne et au Royaume-Uni. Dans ce contexte, quel est votre regard sur les déclarations du président Trump envisageant un recours à la force armée pour annexer le Groenland, sur la guerre économique qu'il veut déclencher contre le Canada afin de le rattacher aux États-Unis, rien que ça, sur l'ingérence d'Elon Musk, membre de l'administration américaine, dans la vie démocratique de l'Allemagne et du Royaume-Uni. Et finalement, au titre de l'article 5, ma question c'est de savoir mais que devraient faire les États membres de l'OTAN si les États-Unis envisagent finalement, militairement, d'envahir le Groenland. Je vous remercie.
So, colleagues, we have just 10 minutes left. After 10 minutes, I mean, it makes sense that Mr. Rutte will answer it. So I start. I have lots of questions, but it's, sorry, not possible. So we start with Mr. Stier, EPP.
Thank you, Madam Chair. 1 minute. Very well. Mr. Secretary General, a year ago you were in Sarajevo, and that was a visit that was very, here I am. Yeah, it was very instrumental for the European Council at that time to decide to open up negotiations for Bosnia and Herzegovina with the EU. Now, as the Secretary General, how do you see the path of that country towards NATO, because it also has its membership action plan? And second, we discussed a lot about the cooperation between NATO and the EU. We have it on the ground in Bosnia and Herzegovina with Altea. Is that a framework that you would like to expand in the overall cooperation between EU and NATO? Thank you.
Perfect. 30 seconds are better. Then Mrs. Inkia.
Thank you very much, Madam President, and I'm here. Welcome to the European Parliament, Mr. Secretary General. I think none of us has missed the President-elect Donald Trump's last troubling remarks, I would say, suggesting that Greenland should become a part of the US. He even stated that he will not exclude any military interventions. Saying that towards another NATO ally is unacceptable. In these times of threats to international law, NATO countries must stand united, as you yourself said. Such statements are therefore unacceptable and play also into the hands of Russia and China. As Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen stated, discussions about Greenland's future must start and end in Nuuk. As Social Democrats, we urge you, as the Secretary General of NATO, to stand firm in support of Denmark and Greenland. In these times of rising geopolitical tension especially, it is vital that we stand united in defense of international law. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cherba. 1 minute.
Good afternoon, Mr. Secretary General. I'm a former president of NATO Parliamentary Assembly, and thank you for your support for the parliamentary dimension of the Assembly. 2 weeks ago, Poland has opened the Polish presidency of the Council of the European Union, and Prime Minister Tusk and President Costa already announced that there will be an informal meeting of the European leaders at the beginning of February and dedicated to the topic of defense. And you will be present as a Secretary General, but also the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. What are your expectations from this meeting? And the second thing, I'm also a current standing rapporteur on the US. And in the light of the outcome of the American elections, I would like to thank you for this dialogue you have from the day one with the new president-elect and his administration. We must maintain our strategic partnership with the US, NATO, but the first test of this should be Ukraine. Do you agree with this? And what are your expectations with this dialogue? Thank you.
Thank you. Now Roberto Vanaggi.
Yes. I'm going to speak in Italian. Il 5 marzo del 2023 un intelligence update britannico ci raccontava come i russi combattessero con i badili per carenza di munizioni. La Presidente della Commissione von der Leyen ci ha spesse volte detto come i russi rubassero le schede elettroniche dalle lavatrici ucraine per mandarle in Russia al fine di utilizzarle per i loro sistemi d'arma. E la NATO ci dice ogni giorno delle ingenti perdite russe che incrementano ogni giorno di 1500 ogni giorno. Ora, in questa situazione di evidente crisi della Russia contro un paese modesto come l'Ucraina, e soprattutto tenuto conto che l'Europa spende 314 miliardi di euro in un regime di mercato, mentre la Russia ne spende 140 per la difesa in un regime di guerra, ci spiega perché tra 3 o 4 anni la Russia potrebbe attaccare un paese della NATO e perché dovremmo spendere di più in difesa?
Now estimated to be 14,117 acres with 33% containment. We gained no acreage yesterday, which is a very good thing. We know that over 7,000 structures are damaged or destroyed, and we have 3,408 firefighting personnel assigned to the incident. 26% of our damage inspections for dwellings have been completed. Impacted residents may visit recovery.lacounty.gov to view preliminary maps showing damage assessments. Please note that the preliminary maps have been posted and are being updated daily. If there is not a color icon on your address, it means the building has not yet been inspected. Severe fire weather conditions will continue through Wednesday. Please be assured that all fire departments and all law enforcement agencies in the area will be prepared. The anticipated winds, combined with low humidities and low fuel moistures, will keep the fire threat in all of Los Angeles County critical. I ask all Los Angeles County residents in wildfire-prone areas to understand that the necessary public safety power shutoffs are important for our collective safety in preventing the next wildfire natural disaster. I did want to dispel one rumor. The LA County Fire Department has never turned down any offers for mutual aid assistance and resources. Repopulation will not occur until all areas are safe. Additionally, our CL-415 Super Scooper that was damaged because of a drone incursion is reportedly going to be flying tomorrow morning. It has been repaired, and we're waiting for the FAA to give us approval to fly again. Thank you to Board Chair Supervisor Catherine Barger and Supervisor Lindsay Horvath for your unwavering leadership and continued support throughout this unprecedented disaster. And finally, to all the Los Angeles County residents affected by this catastrophe, please be assured your firefighters continue to work towards full containment of these wildfires from the air and on the ground. We stand alongside each of you as you begin the repopulation of evacuated areas when safe and the rebuilding of your homes, your communities, and your lives. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Kristen Crowley, Los Angeles City Fire Department Fire Chief. I'll just start off with just a moment to share with everybody out there that's been impacted by these wildland fires that the entire LAFD family, sworn civilian, our city family, Mayor Bass, city leadership, everybody, our thoughts and hearts and prayers go out to you as we continue to push forward and mitigate this emergency. We understand the impacts, and we're working and will continue to work very, very, very hard for everyone. Another point I want to make is that also we are so very grateful for the firefighters and the first responders that have already arrived and continue to arrive in the Southern California region. We absolutely know that we cannot do this on our own, and we are tremendously appreciative of all of your continued support. As the increasing wind event is upon us as we speak, the Los Angeles City Fire Department has maximized our resource capabilities and response capabilities. All available LAFD resources have been staffed. I have strategically pre-positioned engine strike teams and task forces which are dedicated to rapid response for any new fire that breaks out in the city. In addition, I've directed the Fire Prevention Bureau to augment wildfire patrols in high hazard areas. The Palisades fire. Your LEFD remains committed to this fire, and we have a significant number of engines that have been dedicated to this fire. The crews that are involved, we have crews from up and down the state, outside of the state, have made excellent work overnight, mopping up flare-ups and hotspots. Their primary focus last night was on the Mandeville Canyon area, and this fire is now at 23,713 acres with 14% containment, with 5,123 personnel assigned to the Palisades incident. Firefighters will continue to work diligently throughout the day to increase containment and prevent further fire spread. Again, I want to focus my comments on the amount of resources that are here in the Palisades, from the first responders all the way up to our incident command teams. Again, we're going to keep working really hard for you. Just a brief comment on the Hearst fire. It's been held to 799 acres with 95% containment. Again, thank you to the community members that are out there for remaining vigilant. We are not in the clear. I want to make sure of that. We are not in the clear as of yet, and we must not let our guard down. As we have right now extreme fire behavior, and we need to make sure that the community is staying updated with the most information, updated information as well. Follow all evacuation warnings and orders without delay. And please stay safe. I would now like to introduce our next speaker, and that is Sheriff Luna. Thank you.
Robert Luna, Sheriff of Los Angeles County. Regarding our deployment, we still have well over 1,000 of our Los Angeles County deputies out there working on 12-hour shifts. We have 172 California Highway Patrol officers. I'd like to thank the commissioner who was with me yesterday, Sean DeRee, for all of his assistance. I also want to thank Major General Beavers. I was with him as well, and he has fortunately been able to increase the amount of National Guard assistance that he is giving us to up to 600. And he told me yesterday if we need more, we can ask for more, and we are strategically looking at that, analyzing it, and will ask as needed. Evacuations, we have approximately, and this is some good news because it's dropped, we have over 92,000 people who are under evacuation orders and approximately 89,000 people who are under evacuation warnings. I want our community to know this, and Chief Maroney did talk about this for a second. In every conversation we're having about evacuations, warnings, whether they're going to implement them or take them away, the conversation about repopulation is on all of our minds. I know that we are attending, staff's attending community meetings, whether they be out in the Palisades fire area in Malibu for us at LA County Sheriff's, in the Altadena area. We are hearing our community loud and clear, and we want to get you in there as soon as possible. But I want to reiterate what is holding us up. This is very important. We are still, for the Altadena area, we are in the third day of grid searching. It is a very grim task, and we, unfortunately, every day we're doing this, we're running across the remains of individual community members. That is not easy work, very sad to report, and I believe that work is not only going to continue, but I believe will continue to find remains. So please be patient with us. People are saying, I just want to go look at my house and I want to see what's left. We know that, but we have people literally looking for the remains of your neighbors. Please be patient with us. There's a lot of hazards in the area still. The area has not been rendered safe. Please be patient with us. And then we have the potential of crime scenes. And I'm not saying that's what it is. I'm just saying we have to think ahead because we can't go back from that. So please be patient with us. The curfew is still in effect, 6 p.m. To 6 a.m. for specifically the mandatory evacuation areas in both the Palisades impacted area and the Eaton fire impacted areas. Those are subject to change depending on need, one way or another. We understand, again, that people want to go back, but it is dangerous to do so, and we will not put anybody's safety at risk. I want to talk about arrest for the LA County Sheriff's area. Overnight, we had several other arrests. It brings it up to a total of 34 in our geographic area. We have 30 in the Eaton fire area, and we have 4 in the Palisades area. Last night specifically, again, for LA County Sheriff's jurisdiction, we arrested 4. 2 were for curfew violations.
Potential challenges effectively together. That's on Bosnia. And we also are very much in contact, of course, with Kosovo, but also with Serbia to make sure that also the elections coming up in Kosovo later, I think it is later this month or early February, that they will not lead to destabilization. That's also crucial. But again, in Western Balkans, we really have to make sure that we take a close look into this and stay closely connected. It is a crucial neighborhood. Then on the security guarantees, yes, well, I would say let's play it step by step. First of all, we have to make sure that Ukraine is in a position of strength as soon as it enters into peace talks. That's what we can do now, to make sure that they get into a position of strength. As far as we are concerned, in the future, Ukraine should become a member of NATO. That is what we promised Ukraine. We are building that bridge now by all the bilateral security agreements between many allies and Ukraine, but also through the $40 billion pledge. The NSETU organization, which is the Command in Wiesbaden, has started a couple of weeks ago taking over tasks of the previous structures. So that is now all taking place. And as I said in my short introductory remarks, whenever peace talks start to happen, it will be crucial that going forward, Russia has to understand that post those talks, it is impossible for them to again attack Ukraine. So part of the peace talks has to be the exact way of going forward in terms of Ukraine's relationship with NATO, preferably within NATO. But it is, I think, too early now to exactly sketch out what that exactly will mean. Also something we have to discuss with the new incoming US administration. But let's hope that we will get to that point as soon as possible, that we have the luxury of discussing the ongoing security guarantees for Ukraine, because that would mean that we have started into talks and that we have moved to the next phase. And at this moment, clearly Ukraine is not there, because they cannot at this moment negotiate from a position of strength. And we have to do more to make sure, by changing the trajectory of the conflict, that they can get to that position of strength. On standards, totally agree. NATO is strong here. The EU is strong on all the soft power, including the internal market, ramping up defense production. And when it comes to, let's say, industry standards, so from the NATO standards to more industry-specific standards, and sometimes what you will see is that you have 155 ammunition. And you would think that is one particular design for every company which is producing the 155 ammunition, but you would then be amazed how many companies would have some very small specific additions to their system, so that you can only use their 155 ammunition and not generally. So this is something we are working on. And I mentioned already that we have started to work closely together. Of course, we are all colleagues from previous days, so that's easy, with Kaja Kallas, with Ursula von der Leyen, with Antonio Costa, but also with the new Defense Commissioner, Kubilius. And one of the things we agreed is that we will set up a high-level coordination group between NATO and the EU. And more specifically, I agreed with Ursula that whenever there is an issue, which is not solved in that committee, that she and I will phone each other, and we will only hang up when we have agreed, even if it takes the whole weekend and we cannot eat in the meantime. So we will have to deal with this issue, and we will have to solve them. And we will. And she is a former defense minister of Germany. We are great friends. So this should work, because we have to make sure that we are in a position of maximum strength vis-à-vis Russia and others, and not spending too much time internally between the EU and NATO when it should be easy to get to an agreement. And that's also an answer to how to get the EU and NATO closer together, more coordination, but light touch, no heavy structures with lots of minutes and meetings and committees. Let's make it as easygoing as possible, so that we can focus on the main salient points and the big issues. On capacity planning, yes, absolutely, we have to work on this. I discussed this with the Defence Commissioner, how to do this, and totally agree on shortening the time to develop new weapon systems. That's particularly crucial that we do that. And we can learn here, of course, from what we see in Ukraine. And Ukraine is extremely fast now at bringing new developments to the battlefield. But Russia is then extremely fast in implementing what Ukraine has just implemented 2 weeks ago. So we are learning from this. And this whole idea that we can in detail describe what a design should look like, including the color and the type of paint you use, etc., is silly. The big risk in EU and NATO is that the better is the enemy of good. And we don't have to go for the 10 on a 1 to 10 scale, or for the A+. Sometimes the B is good enough. And speed sometimes is more important than perfection. Then, of course, the new incoming administration, they will start next Monday. We have seen some press conferences, some things being said by some people in the US. But I would say, let's take this forward starting from next Monday onwards. What I know from Donald Trump and from the incoming administration is that they were the ones pushing us for more defense spending. They were successful at this, and they were right. I mean, we did not spend enough, and now luckily we are overall close to the 2%. The problem is, of course, that in the meantime the 2% is not enough. And some of you asked me, okay, what should it be? I don't want to commit to a number, but as I said in my Carnegie talk after my speech, when you look, so let's say at a sort of first glance at the capability requirements emerging from the internal planning process within NATO, it will be north of 3%. But then you're right, if you do joint buying and making use of the NSPA, Luxembourg structures and everything else we have within NATO and the EU, you can deduct joint buying, you can deduct innovation. For example, Ukraine is experimenting with new radar systems, which are extremely less expensive than some of the more traditional radar systems to detect enemy missiles coming in. Just one example, if you deduct that, you don't have to get to what we are afraid of you would need now, which is 3.6, 3.7. So you would bring that number somewhat down, but it will be impressively more than the 2% we are at now, I'm afraid. But that is a structured process within NATO. We will conclude it over the coming month with the defense ministers, latest in June before the summit in The Hague. Then on the more autonomous European defense, well, it's great to have a sort of European NATO, but then forget about the 2%. Then you have to bring it up to 8, 9 or 10% if you really want. You have to build your own nuclear capability, and it will take 15, 20 years if you want to build a European NATO without the US. At this moment, the US is spending over 60% of all the money is being spent within NATO territory, over 60%. That means the other 31 are doing less than 40%, including Canada. And so it is an illusion that you can build a European NATO over the next 10 or 50 years. And why would you? I mean, the transatlantic relationship, I think, after the First World War, but particularly after the Second World War, has served us very well. So why would we disconnect from the US? I would be against it. But again, if you want this for ideological reasons, then you have to quadruple or even more your defense spending, and then it will still take you 10 or 15 years. And I agree, better spending always better then more spending, but I think it is both. It is better spending, like making use of the joint procurement, but at the same time we need to do more spending, because simply, when you look what we spent during the Cold War, the levels were north of 3% generally, and the 2% we are now is absolutely not enough. When you look what Russia is producing now in 3 months, it's what the whole of NATO is producing from Los Angeles up to Ankara in a full year. And then Russia is not bigger than the Netherlands and Belgium combined as an economy. The two of you together is the Russian economy. And they are producing in 3 months what the whole of NATO is producing in a year. And don't forget, when you compare Russian numbers, that what you can buy in Russia for the same money is, of course, much more. Because they do not have our high salaries, they don't have our bureaucracy, they can move at a higher speed. And they have basically created a war economy, and their whole industry is now on a war footing. So don't compare their 8 or 9% defense spending, 1/3 of the 8 or 9% of GDP, 1/3 of the whole state budget being spent on defense. When you cobble it all together, it might be less than what the European NATO is doing. But again, you can buy so much more, do so much more, and they have this urgent need to get there. Then opening up the US defense market versus spending more in Europe, it is both. It is absolutely both, because in Europe we have fantastic companies. But for example, on air defense, we still, and on the 5th generation fighter jets, we cannot lose out on the US. So you need both, and there is so much money going around, and this was my argument with Trump, open up the US defense markets, because if you want to buy something in the US, you have to go through the Congress, the White House, the Defense Department, the Pentagon, etc., before you can get your hands on a Patriot system. So make that easier. And at the same time, there is so much money going around that Thales and Rheinmetall and Leonardo and all the fantastic defense companies here in Europe will have plenty of opportunity to put in extra production lines, extra shifts. And by the way, they have to do this. And don't wait for the 10-year contracts they are all asking, because we will not be able to create 10-year contracts, but they know the demand is there for the long term. So please, defense industry, ramp up production and be good businessmen, and don't lose out to the South Koreans, because South Korean is getting into the market. Poland, Romania, Estonia, they are all buying South Korean, because European, American defense companies are not delivering at the speed we need and at the prices we need. Then on, of course, sabotage and all that. And as I said, hybrid, it should be, I think, more towards destabilizing actions by the Russians. And we should do more than just tracking what they are doing. And one of the great things of what will happen tomorrow in Finland, in Helsinki, is that you'll have a meeting discussing how we can counter what the Russians are doing, and also how we can survey the Baltic Sea. And the Russians don't like that we have a bigger NATO presence there. But that is the result of some of these anchor dragging, and if it is really just a mistake of Russians not being able to sail ships, then we should launch a huge initiatives by the EU and NATO to have a huge training course for all Russian sailors to learn how to navigate their ships and experience what it means when your anchor is for 100 miles on the seabed. Then on Trump, yes, he has been right many times. I agree. And he might be right many times in the future, and we have to dialogue with him. And I like the reaction of Mette Frederiksen, the Prime Minister of Denmark, who did not immediately react to what he said about Greenland, but she brought it back to the issue which is at stake, which is the Arctic, and how to make sure that in the Arctic we have a strategic issue to be discussed between NATO, the US, within NATO and the EU, how to deal with the Arctic, etc. And this is not about who rules or controls Greenland. This is, of course, about making sure that the Arctic stays same. So yes, Europe can rely on the United States. I'm absolutely convinced the United States will stay within NATO. I'm not worried about that. But we have to make sure that the argument which the US had in the past, and still can have to a certain extent at this moment, that because of what they are spending, we can spend more on other stuff because they spend it on defense, that we take out that argument by spending more ourselves. And when I say spending more ourselves, yes, it's better spending, joint procurement, innovation, etc. But again, also more spending. The 2%, everything I'm seeing at this moment is not nearly enough. And if we don't do it, we are safe now, but not in 4 or 5 years. So if you don't do it, get out your Russian language courses or go to New Zealand. Or decide now to spend more. And that's exactly the debate we have to finalize over the next 3 or 4 months. To stay safe in this part of the world and defend ourselves. On Eurobonds and all that, that's for the EU. I just want you to spend more money. And where you get it from, I had some clear views on this in the past. But I've been forced by the new team to not discuss that any longer. As long as the money is there. It's not for, I've never committed to 4%. There was somebody saying, I think it was here that I mentioned 4%. No, I've not committed to a new number. Just saying 2% is not nearly enough. I would say if I was in Bulgaria, I would be very happy to be in NATO. But of course, I accept your argument. But I do not agree. Then on Greenland, Canada, I already went to that. Bosnia, I already went to that. Then on, I think, finally, Turkey. Well, in 2016, it was Turkey with Germany, and the Dutch were then heading the European Union Council, UCO, and we were able to come to a deal with Turks in the Syrian refugee crisis. And I was very happy with that, because that made it possible to bring down the numbers of Syrians coming into Germany, Sweden, and the Netherlands, because particularly and you remember the then chair of the European Parliament saying, Viktor Orban saying, nobody wants to go to Hungary, they all want to go to Germany. And that's true. And in 2016, we risked that the number would reach 1 million. But because of this deal with Turkey, it did not. And I've always felt that Turkey is a worthwhile member of NATO, playing its role, and yes, also defending its interests, like everybody here is defending its interests within the EU and within NATO, and that's fine. But they're a very valuable member of the alliance. And then maybe finally on the eastern flank, one of the things I learned, Madam, is that yes, I'm happy with the forward land forces, etc. So all the initiatives we have now to secure the 8 countries, including now Finland, on the eastern flank. But at the same time, let's never forget that in the end, we have to also at the same time message towards the Russians that whenever you would decide to attack us, it is not only the Latvian military which will fight you back, not only the forward land forces, it will be the whole of NATO, including our mighty navy, our mighty land forces, our fighter jets, which will take you out. So not even dare to take 1 square kilometer of Latvia. And when you say you are on the eastern flank, it is The Hague, London and New York at the eastern flank. Latvia, yes, maybe physically, but we are all on the eastern flank. We are all in this together. There are no first or second class citizens in NATO and the EU. It's really crucial that we understand this and that our collective defense is really collective and connected. So I think I tried to answer as many questions as possible.
Thank you, Secretary General. Dear Mark Rutte, thank you for this valuable exchange of views. It was a real pleasure to have you here today. Colleagues, may I ask the coordinators to remain in the room? Our coordinators meeting will start in 1 or 2 minutes. Our meeting is now closed. Thank you very much, and once again, thank you, Secretary General.
In that spirit that we have seen hundreds, if not thousands, of Angelenos traveling all around the region to deliver supplies, clothes, whatever they think might help the victims of these fires. As we've mentioned, the National Weather Service is predicting close to hurricane force level winds, and so we're making urgent preparations. My top priority and the priority of everyone else is to do everything we can to protect lives. As these winds approach, LA City firefighters and firefighters from across the county, state, and nation, and even overseas, are in a proactive and strategic posture to save lives. Firefighting resources from LAFD and fire departments from all over are positioned in strategic holding locations. DWP is deploying water tankers to augment water supply for firefighters. The emergency operations centers remain activated at the highest level to rapidly coordinate emergency response. As we prepare for more wind, we're also urgently working to provide people with much-needed resources. This week, as Chair Barger said, our city and county will launch in-person local assistance centers that are tailored to those affected by specific fires. These local assistance centers is for Angelenos impacted by the Palisades and Hearst fires, and they will open at the UCLA Research Park, which was formerly known as the West Side Pavilion. It will operate from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m., 7 days a week. These centers will help people who have lost vital records like birth certificates, driver's license, Social Security documentation. They will help people who've lost their homes or businesses apply for disaster relief loans, and they will provide referrals for mental health counseling and other services. We anticipate that there will be representation for over 20 city departments. There will be representatives from the state and federal departments and agencies. Later today, we are also going to be releasing policies on the city level that will help with the rebuilding process. So as we continue to go through these next few days where the fires are still a serious threat, we also want to begin to help people put their lives back together and to prepare to rebuild our city. I also want to again remind Angelenos that lacity.gov is now a one-stop shop for assistance for those who are impacted and a place to help Angelenos find a way to get involved. As the winds pick up, please stay safe. Please heed the call to evacuate should you receive that. And remember to heed all public safety guidance. Thank you.
I'm Lindsay Horvath, Supervisor for the 3rd District of Los Angeles County. The latest Palisades fire updates, as you've heard, more than 23,000 acres have been impacted by this fire, and it is 14% contained. We have over 5,100 personnel, including 44 helicopters and 540 engines. The fire continues to hold along Mandeville Canyon, and we are grateful for our first responders and all those on the front lines fighting in this area. We know it is critical, and you are doing a great job. We've also made significant progress in Topanga Oaks, Sylvia Park, Temescal Ridge, to Mulholland. All of these areas have been under threat, and we are continuing to hold. Santa Monica has lifted their evacuation orders and downgraded to warnings in North San Vicente, moving from order to warning at 8 a.m. today. All of the warning areas have been lifted. A particularly dangerous situation has been issued. Strongest winds from Tuesday morning until Wednesday. We strongly encourage caution and vigilance. This is the weather prediction that the National Weather Service had going into last week's event. So these conditions are significant, they are serious, and we need you to follow all orders. All Santa Monica Malibu United School District schools will remain closed today. All Santa Monica campuses, except for Roosevelt Elementary, will be open. All LAUSD schools will be open today except Canyon Charter Elementary, Kenter Canyon Charter Elementary, Palisades Charter Elementary, Marquez Charter Elementary, Topanga Charter Elementary, Lanai Road Elementary, and Paul Revere Middle School. Our Department of Mental Health has resources for how to speak with our young people about wildfires at dmh.lacounty.gov. We need to support our children in this time and make sure they're able to talk about this tragedy. Our DMH helpline is 800-854-7771. Metro fares continue to be suspended for as long as conditions remain the same. We thank our chair of the Metro Board, Janice Hahn, and our CEO, Stephanie Wiggins, for their assistance.
Alarm. נתיב הגדוד, גילגל, תומר, פצאל, אחיה, יפית, מעלה אפרים, מגדלים, גיתית, משואה, מכורה, איתמר, ארגמן, חמרה, אילון מורה, בקעות, רועי, קידה, נעמה, ייטב, נערן, הר ברכה, חמדת, משכיות, רותם, שדמות מחולה, מחולה, מבוא דותן, שקד, קרל מנשה, חיננית, גבעת עוז, טירת צבי, שדה תרומות, מלכישוע Rehabilitation Village, תל תאומים, שדה אליהו, מירב, רוויה, רחוב, מעלה גלבוע, שלוחות, חוות עדן, רשפים, שלפים, מוקיבלה, מגן שאול, בית אלפא אין הפטיבה, רמון, סנדלה, גן נר, חבר סטלמנטס, גאל סטלמנטס, נורית, גדעונה, אומן סטלמנטס, ישראל, מבואות הגלבוע אינדסטריאל זון.
Even in areas not impacted by the fires, especially children and older adults, especially those with serious health complications, are particularly at risk. LA County Department of Public Health is providing N95 masks at all evacuation shelters and to community-based organizations. When you are at home, please close your windows and doors, run the air conditioning or air purifiers if you have them, and check your filters regularly. In your car, close the windows and vents, turn your air conditioning on to recirculate. Do not, in any way, use leaf blowers or other actions that will push ash into the air. Follow all drinking water advisories. And due to ocean contamination, avoid the following beaches: Malibu Point at Surfrider Beach, Solstice Creek at Dan Blocker County Beach, and Inner Cabrillo Beach in San Pedro. To stay informed about the latest emergency orders, you can go to emergency.lacounty.gov. And I want to once again thank all of those who are on the front lines, keeping us safe through this very difficult time. All of our volunteers who have kicked into action to ensure that our community members are supported. And I also want to thank our governor for an additional executive order in addition to the one that he issued yesterday to expedite debris removal and to reduce the risk of mudslides. As we know, rain is predicted starting next week, and these complicated conditions may only worsen. We thank him for his foresight and his partnership.
Helen Chavez, Communications Director for Chair Catherine Barger. Chair Barger recognizes and thanks the following elected representatives for joining us this morning and for their ongoing support during this emergency. We have with us 1st District Supervisor Ilda Solis, California Board of Equalization Antonio Vasquez, Santa Monica Mayor Lana Nagrete, and State Senator Sasha Renee Perez. We are now going to transition to the Q&A portion of our press conference. Please raise your hand and wait to be called upon. When you are called upon, please announce your name and the media outlet that you are with. And we're going to go start right here.
Gigi Gracia, Fox 11 News. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Okay. Gigi Gracia, Fox 11 News. I have a question about the fire, but I'm going to start with this question. Maybe I'll have a second chance. Assistant Chief Choi, to most families, if not all families who have pets, they are like family to them. Tomorrow will be 7 days that those pets that are inside the houses that survived may be without water and most likely without food, which would put that in an extremely critical condition that could lead to death if it hasn't already. Is there nothing that can be done for those folks that are telling us they are desperate, they just want to go in, get their pet, and go right out? They don't want to look at the house, they want to get their animals out. The fire broke out at 10:30 Tuesday morning. Many folks were at work already and have not been able to get back.
Yes, I can tell you my comments were specific to escorting that resident or those residents back to their house to do such things. There are other options that we can do. For example, officers that are patrolling the area can get a list of locations at the checkpoint. Officers can patrol these areas and go check themselves. I'm not saying that's exactly going to happen, but there are options where we don't have to leave a pet in there if we're made aware of that. So you can go to the checkpoints and talk to officers, but I urge you not to go there just to wait to go in to see your house, which is largely what a lot of these these individuals are doing. They're waiting to be escorted to see their property, which we can't do. We still aren't doing medication and pets. However, we can come up with a way where if somebody knows a pet is in the residence, that we'll do everything we can in our authority to go in there and get that pet.
And then, Gigi, on that note, Pasadena Humane Society is actually going into the Altadena area that's under evacuation orders and feeding pets. So there is, we will link up and see if we can duplicate that.
First to the woman right there, in the right here. Yep, and then we'll go.
Great, thank you. Oh, you've got to hold on. Great, sorry. Hello, Jane Secker, Sky News. A couple of questions. One to Fire Chief Moroney. More bad winds on the way. We know the conditions, as we've just heard, are going to be the same as last week. How confident are you that you're better prepared this time? And also a question for Mayor Bass, if I might. Our correspondent David Blevins asked you last week if you owe the people of Los Angeles an apology for cutting the fire budget. You didn't respond to him then. Would you like to respond to us now?
So for the fire question, thank you. We're absolutely better prepared for this coming PDS. Governor Newsom has set up a mobilization center in Banning where we have resources staged that can come into LA County to assist with a new fire start or the expansion of one of our existing fires. We also have numerous aircraft, local government aircraft, helicopters, we have water bombers, we have retardant fixed-wing aircraft from the state and federal government, we have military aircraft. So we've not only augmented the ground resources, but also the air resources. I think that we're very well prepared for the next event, but that's never going to be, we're never sure that we're going to be able to catch the next fire and keep it small. They said 70-mile-an-hour winds. It's going to be very difficult to contain that fire. That's why we ask all residents in a brush-prone area to be prepared to evacuate if you get the evacuation order and start those preparations before the evacuation warning comes. Thank you.
There was a two-part question to that, correct?
My focus is on us being prepared as a city for tomorrow. As you began, we could face another very difficult situation for thousands of Angelenos. When we are past this period, there will be an evaluation of everything that went on. And at that point in time, we will see there is not agreement as to whether or not the budget was cut. All of those issues will be resolved when we are clear that Angelenos are safe and we are ready to rebuild our city. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go right here in the middle. Next.
Jonathan Bigliotti, CBS News, for Mayor Bass, please. Last week, many people were working and could not get back in time to properly evacuate. As we've discussed in this room, there were pet care issues, health care issues, child care issues. Now ahead of this latest event, you have businesses that are proactively closing, essentially treating this event like it was a hurricane or a blizzard. If they are taking those steps, why are you not implementing broader closures right now to keep your constituents safe?
We are doing everything we can to keep Angelenos safe. If there is a need for closures, that will be done. But right now, we are in preparation for tomorrow. Thank you.
Is this the day, though, to treat this like it is a hurricane or a blizzard?
Absolutely it is, which is why you see everybody here standing united, prepared and ready to address what, if hopefully we won't experience, but we are ready, we are prepared, and we will continue to do everything we can to keep Angelenos safe. Thank you.
But now this is important because this is the fourth time we've had these dire warnings. Each previous time there has been loss. So this is a critical time to make those decisions. In hurricanes and blizzards, like I've discussed, people stay at home. Businesses are closed. People can then prepare to evacuate, so there aren't pets left in their homes. There aren't children with daycare providers. They're scrambling. They scrambled last week. There are pets. So the question is, what are you doing to make sure that that doesn't happen today?
I've answered your question. Okay, we're moving on over here in the back right there.
Hi, Morgan Windsor for ABC News. I have two questions, one for fire officials regarding the status of the investigation on the Eaton fire, and then a second for perhaps the district attorney on price gouging. The first question, I'm wondering if officials are honing in on the transmission towers owned by Edison in the area of the Eaton fire as a possible source of ignition.
Yeah, thank you for your question. I'm going to turn that over to the LA County Sheriff. The cause of the fire is still under investigation. The sheriff might have an update for you. If it is arson and not the transmission tower, then that would be a crime. I'd like the sheriff to speak to that.
Simple answer to that is yes. We're looking at everything. We have a team that is obviously focused on the response as we prepare for any event, and then the investigation, not only into the recovery of the remains and the issues surrounding that, but anything that would have caused any of the fires anywhere in our jurisdiction. I think the chief the assistant chief from LA talked about a task force. We're on that as well. We're working together, and we expect to find answers.
Okay, I saw a hand right here in the blue jacket.
Hi, good morning. Lauren Coronado with NBC4 News. This is for Chief Crowley. You mentioned wildfire patrols in high-risk areas. Can you identify those high-risk areas?
Sure. So, and that's that lean forward posture as we're looking to do everything in our power to ensure that we maximize our efforts with the resources that we have, which this whole patrol, we're utilizing fire inspectors. So with that, we're going to be patrolling, taking a proactive approach. Anywhere where there's any wildland risk is where we're going to be patrolling. It's just extra set of eyes, ears. We can also help the community with questions. And that's really important. The community also knows that the city, the fire department is leaning forward. We're utilizing the resources that we have. So to answer your question very specifically, it's anywhere where it's in the wildland area. That's where we're going to be putting our patrols out. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have one more question. Sorry, I should have asked right off the bat. For any fire official, I understand there's better air resources this time around, military equipped. With these high winds, I know a big issue is that they weren't able to be utilized because of the high winds. When we're talking military equipped, does that change things? Can you do those aerial attacks with these kind of aircraft?
It's not going to change it. So we still have wind cutoff speeds for fixed-wing retardant tankers, water bombers, and helicopters. The helicopters that we have at LA County Fire are military helicopters. They're patterned after the Black Hawk. And still we do have wind cutoff speeds, not only for the safety of the helicopter, but what happens as the wind speeds increase, the effectiveness of the water drops or retardant drops is affected. And the minute that aerial firefighting resources are no longer efficient or effective or safe, we have to ground them. That's the unfortunate truth, but we do have a lot of people on the ground that can still fight the fire. You saw our firefighters, 100-mile-an-hour winds, Eaton Canyon, and Altadena that kept fighting the fire even in those strong winds. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go over here, and then we'll go over here.
Thank you. This is Dave Zonizer at the Los Angeles Times. I was wondering if you could go sort of fire by fire and tell you where you are on determining the origin. Are you guys looking at whether or not New Year's Eve fireworks might have been a trigger for the Palisades fire with something then flaring up later? I know you mentioned the Eaton Canyon fire, but can you tell us, for example, is arson being viewed definitely as the cause of the Sunset fire? Could somebody just walk us through each of them?
Yeah, I mean, I could talk about, so right now we have the task force that is robust, that is, they're identifying cause and origin for each of these separate fires. There's so many of them. None have been ruled out of arson. There are ongoing investigations, but also the Palisades fire specifically, since that's the one that's still rampant in the city of Los Angeles, there's been no definitive determination that it is arson at this point. But we're looking at every angle.
Anything more specific?
It's an ongoing investigation. If I could, I would. I don't have the answer for you.
Understood. Thank you. And we're going to go right here.
Hi, this is Kate Cagle from Spectrum News 1. I have two questions. One for Fire Chief Maroney. Is there a definite threshold for wind speed when those aerial drops have to stop? Like, is 70 miles an hour that threshold? And then my other question is, given how dense some of these neighborhoods are where we've seen orders and warnings, I mean, all the way to Wilshire in Santa Monica last week, we've seen gridlock when people are trying to all get out at once. Have you guys worked on addressing that issue if people do have to evacuate tonight from an extremely dense area like we saw with the Sunset Fire? Folks just couldn't get out because traffic was jammed. How do you address that?
Yeah, so to answer the first part of your question, there is a specific threshold. And I don't remember what that threshold is, although I used to work at air operations. 30 to 40 miles an hour is beginning, I believe, to be that threshold. I'll see if our CAL FIRE partner from the state of California remembers what that threshold is for helicopters and fixed-wing air tankers.
Please say your name and your
Good morning. Jerry Magana with CAL FIRE representing incident management team. So with the specific aircraft, they all have a different limitation. The problem is when you have sustained winds, over 40 miles an hour is the issue. The problem is the gusts. So the gusts peak and the aircraft limitations or capabilities are then limited based on approach and departures, as well as Chief mentioned, the drop accuracy. So each aircraft will have that limitation based on the manufacturer's recommendation, and then as far as the safety component, usually the limiting factor is gusts over 30 miles an hour, but the sustained winds, anything over 40, is pretty much going to ground most aircraft. So again, each one of those aircraft have those specific limitations, but as an overall general rule, safety rule, the gusts is what is the issue, and this is what the gusts that we've been having.
Thank you. Can you restate, please, your name and spelling?
Yes, Jerry Magana, Gerry. Last name is Magana, Magana, representing the CAL FIRE incident management teams. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have two last questions. There's a clarification over here.
I'd like to answer the second part of the question regarding community congestion and people leaving all at once under the evacuation order. We really want residents in LA County to be prepared. If you don't have a wildfire evacuation plan for your family and your home, please make one today. Visit www.fire.lacounty.gov/RSG. That stands for Ready, Set, Go. I would recommend, in an abundance of caution, if you get an alert on your telephone for an evacuation warning, leave then. Don't wait for the order, because we know from experience that if you wait for the order, you might get caught up in the congestion that you referenced. And please do not silence the emergency alerts on your telephone. If we send out an alert at 3 a.m. on Tuesday night or Wednesday morning, when you're sleeping, we want you to wake up and evacuate. We know we had some issues earlier, but please do not turn off those wireless emergency alerts on your telephone.
Have those issues been resolved? Those alerts are now accurate? Sorry, my question was that those alert issues have been resolved and people can rely that that's accurate now?
Yes. I just think it's very important that Chief Maroney and I stand together and have the exact same message, which is the Ready, Set, Go piece is Ready, Set, Go. The community needs to also understand you don't have to wait for the order. Knowing what we know and what we saw if you're in any of these particular areas, that lean forward posture, we keep talking about it. We saw the impacts, extreme impacts of the winds when what happened in Palisades. Our professional advice to anybody out there is to make sure you're ready, to make sure you have a plan. We talk about the pets, we talk about the medications, put your plan together, be ready, and you do not have to wait. You do not have to wait for the order. And I think it's really, really important that everybody hears what Chief Maroney and I are saying. And in fact, the rest of the region, the rest of the fire chiefs are saying the same thing. Thank you.
And Kevin, you were going to address the WE alert issues?
Kevin McGowan, Director with the LA County Office of Emergency Management. In partnership with the state, we have the wireless emergency alert system ready to go with a state partnership.
Thank you. And we are at time. We will have one-on-one interviews. If you have any unresolved or unanswered questions, please approach to the front and we will connect you to the appropriate speaker. Thank you for today.
Mit Girlanden beschäftigen und Vorworten, sondern immer direkt in die Themen reingehen. Und das ist sehr erfrischend und zielführend, gerade wenn man so mit diesem Aufwand zusammenkommen muss, wie wir das hier tun. Ein ganz wesentliches Thema, Wladislaw hat es angesprochen, war heute Nachmittag die Unterstützung der ukrainischen Rüstungsindustrie, weil völlig klar ist, wenn das Geld da ist, wenn die Rüstungskapazitäten für die Produktion da sind, dann ist die Ukraine selbst am schnellsten, wenn es damit geht, die eigenen Truppen zu versorgen mit Material und Waffen. Unser Hauptziel muss deshalb weiterhin sein, dass die Ukraine ganz generell, aber gerade auch industriell aus einer Position der Stärke heraus agieren kann. Neben den Materiallieferungen ist die Stärkung der ukrainischen Rüstungsindustrie deshalb eine entscheidende Stellschraube, an der wir drehen wollen und müssen. Und wir wollen sie mit der Finanzierung ukrainischer Beschaffungsvorhaben stärken. Und das ist, glaube ich, ein ganz wichtiger Schritt. Eine weitere Stellschraube sind natürlich in diesem Kontext Joint Ventures. Auch daran werden wir gezielt weiterarbeiten. Und zu den Sofortmaßnahmen gehört, wir finanzieren, was gebraucht wird und erzielen damit eine sofortige und noch schnellere Wirkung. Ein Beispiel. Das ukrainische Führungsinformationssystem, also das IT-System, das die ukrainischen Streitkräfte für die operative Führung brauchen. Das andere Beispiel ist, die Ukraine hat dringenden Finanzierungsbedarf für Softwarepflege und Weiterentwicklung in diesem Bereich. Und so konnten wir im Rahmen der Tüchtigungsinitiative der Bundesregierung direkt mit 14 Millionen Euro bereitstehen bei der Unterstützung. Wir werden mit den Ukrainern ausloten, wo wir sie darüber hinaus unmittelbar unterstützen können. Denkbar ist dies natürlich vor allem im Bereich von Drohnen und Munition. Zu den Joint Ventures. Wir wollen Joint Ventures unserer Rüstungsindustrie, unserer europäischen Rüstungsindustrie vorantreiben. Die Ukraine hat aktuell freie Produktionskapazitäten, die gilt es zu nutzen, indem wir die ukrainische Rüstungsindustrie mit unseren Rüstungsunternehmen zusammenbringen und das so schnell und so effektiv wie möglich. Erfolgreiche Vorzeigeprojekte gibt es bereits, zum Beispiel in der Drohnenproduktion. Das ist zum Beispiel die Software und Optronik der Drohnen, die nun für die Spezialkräfte beschafft werden, kommen aus Deutschland, Falke von Quantum Systems. Sie konnten mit den Erfahrungen, und das ist wichtig für beide Seiten, mit den Erfahrungen aus der Ukraine weiterentwickelt werden. Das heißt, beide Seiten profitieren von einer engen Kooperation. Wir helfen also einerseits der Ukraine und andererseits profitieren wir wiederum vom Austausch von Erfahrung und Know-how. Und das macht dann wiederum die zu liefernden oder zu produzierenden Systeme besser. Wir wollen diese industrielle Zusammenarbeit, und das war heute die Kernaussage, auch auf andere Fähigkeitsbereiche ausweiten. Und deswegen wollen wir 5 untereinander die Erfahrungen austauschen, um im Bereich Joint Venture, gemeinsamer Kooperation noch besser und noch schneller zu werden. Und deshalb haben wir heute beschlossen, dafür eine gemeinsame Arbeitsgruppe einzurichten, die bereits bis zum nächsten Treffen Best-Practice-Beispiele austauscht und nach gemeinsamen Wegen sucht für mehr Effizienz im Bereich von Joint Venture. Zur europäischen Verteidigungsfähigkeit, der zweite große Block. Wir haben heute auch darüber gesprochen, das ist dass wir haben festgestellt, gemeinsam, dass unser Schwerpunkt sein muss, die NATO-Fähigkeitsziele, die im Sommer gemeinsam abgestimmt auf dem Tisch liegen werden, so schnell wie möglich umzusetzen. Was sind die Fähigkeitsziele? Das ist einfach konkret das, was an Truppen, Material, Systemen und Verbänden gebraucht wird, um die definierten Ziele einer effektiven, erfolgreichen Abschreckung und Verteidigungsfähigkeit zu erreichen. Dadurch, dass die NATO entschieden hat, auf unsere Anregungen das Ganze schon im Juni vorzustellen und nicht erst im Oktober, gewinnen wir erheblich Zeit und können schneller beginnen mit der Umsetzung. Und es gilt eben nicht nur mit Blick auf die Erwartungen der neuen US-Administration, auch unabhängig davon muss allen klar sein, 2025 ist ein entscheidendes, ein weichenstellendes Jahr für die Sicherheit Europas. Wir haben keine Zeit zu verlieren, wenn es um die Stärkung des europäischen Pfeilers der NATO geht. Wir haben heute bekräftigt, dass die Zusammenarbeit von Europäischer Union und NATO zentral bleibt und noch wichtiger wird. Wichtig sind aber auch konkrete Projekte daneben. Deswegen haben wir heute beschlossen, auf meinen Vorschlag hin eine Group of Five, eine Core Group gewissermaßen zu bilden, die sich mit Beschaffungen, mit der Frage beschäftigt, wie können wir Beschaffung vereinfachen und beschleunigen, wie können wir Standardisierung herbeiführen, wie können wir insbesondere auch dafür Sorge tragen, dass Zertifizierung und Prüfung vereinheitlicht werden, so wie das in anderen Bereichen im Rahmen der Europäischen Union ohnehin schon immer der Fall ist, aber in diesem Bereich nicht. Das geht weit hinein über die technischen Fragestellungen heraus, auch in die Frage der Taxonomie, also wie kommt Rüstungsindustrie in Europa an fair finanzierte Kredite, um Produktionskapazitäten auszubauen. Alles, was wir in diesem Bereich tun, gerade wenn es um Technik geht, machen wir natürlich unter enger Einbindung des NATO-Generalsekretärs. Wir haben es gerade gehört, NATO-Generalsekretär, Verteidigungskommissar und Hohe Kommissarin, Hohe Beauftragte für die Außenpolitik werden zur nächsten Sitzung nach Paris eingeladen. Wir haben auch schon erste Ideen besprochen. Wir wollen beim Informationsaustausch zwischen den beiden Organisationen vorankommen. Sie alle wissen, dass es hierfür bislang enge Grenzen gibt aufgrund von unterschiedlichen Kongruenzen, was die Mitgliedschaften angeht. Außerdem gibt es für den Schutz und die Verteidigung Europas Fähigkeitslücken, die zwingend geschlossen werden müssen, sei es zum Beispiel im Bereich der Präzisionswaffen, der weitreichenden oder der Luftverteidigung. Ich komme zum Schluss. Die Group of Five ist ein
We must be makers of this technology and not just takers. Britain needs our own national champions, our own Googles and Microsofts. We are launching a new dedicated team with the mandate to strengthen our sovereign AI capacities by supporting high-potential frontier AI companies in the UK. This team will work across and beyond government, partnering with the fast-growing firms to ensure that they can access the compute capacity, the data, the global talent they need to succeed in Britain. We have already seen how a small number of companies at the frontier of AI are set to wield outsized global influence. We have a narrow window of opportunity to secure a stake in the future of AI. By acting now, we can secure a better future for the British people in the decades to come. But this is just the start. We will safely unlock the value of public sector data assets to support secure, responsible, and ethical AI innovation. We will overhaul the skills system to safeguard our status as a top destination for global talent, with a workforce that is ready for the AI age. And we will use a scan, pilot, and scale approach to quickly identify and trial ways of using AI to transform our economy and improve our public services. The stakes just couldn't be higher. This is a top priority for the Prime Minister and across government. We will harness the power of AI to fulfil our promise to the British people of better jobs, better public services, and better lives. We've attracted more than £25 billion worth of investment into AI since we took office. This week alone, global giants have committed a further £14 billion worth of investment. Phase 2 of the spending review will see every department using technology to drive forward our national missions to deliver better value for taxpayers. AI will also be fundamental to the industrial strategy to attract investment, to grow the economy, and create high-quality, well-paid jobs right across the country. Madam Deputy Speaker, the AI revolution is now. This government is determined to fully harness this opportunity for the British businesses and working people right across the United Kingdom. I commend this statement to the House.
Shadow Secretary of State Alan Mack.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Secretary of State for advance sight of his statement. And let me begin by thanking Matt Clifford for his work. Having known Matt for many years, I'm grateful for his long-standing contribution to the tech sector, including the last Conservative government. And Madam Deputy Speaker, it was that last Conservative government which identified the opportunities of AI early, and we acted decisively. We kept Britain out of the EU's anti-growth regulatory regime, enabling our tech sector to flourish. In contrast, the Secretary of State is on record praising the EU's approach to AI, which even President Macron rejected. So can the Secretary of State rule out regulatory alignment with the EU on AI issues? We also launched, Madam Deputy Speaker, the Incubator for AI, which led groundbreaking work to improve productivity, as well as the gov.uk chatbot. Both were led by my honourable friend, the member for Brentwood and Ongar, and can the Secretary of State guarantee the future of both projects under this government? Madam Deputy Speaker, we also provided £500 million for AI compute, because our AI sector requires cutting-edge computing power as well as more energy to power data centres. Labour's energy policy is taking our country to the brink of blackouts. So instead of just launching another quango today, the AI Energy Council, can he assure the House that the AI sector will have reliable access to all the energy it needs? Madam Deputy Speaker, it was a Conservative government that organised the world's first AI Safety Summit and delivered the world's third largest AI market, fostering an environment in which Sir Demis Hassabis won the Nobel Prize last year. Even the Prime Minister admitted today that when it comes to AI, Britain starts from a position of strength. But, Madam Deputy Speaker, the bad news is Labour are already squandering the world-leading AI position we built up for Britain. Last July, one of Labour's first actions on entering government was cutting £1.3 billion of funding for Britain's first exascale supercomputer and the AI research resource, both of which Matt Clifford says deserve support in his report. So why didn't the Secretary of State stand up to the Chancellor when she cut his funding last July? Madam Deputy Speaker, anyone reading the plan will also see it's been fully drenched in Labour gobbledygook, peppered with references to missions, mission delivery boards, clusters, sector champions, and even local trusted intermediaries. Their plan confirms what everyone suspected all along. Labour prefers technocratic jargon to the actual tech sector. Madam Deputy Speaker, this plan was ready last September and due to be published last November. So why has Labour delayed publication again and again and finally chosen a day when they needed to divert attention away from the beleaguered Chancellor? Madam Deputy Speaker, what's not in their plan is even more telling than what's in it. Firstly, there's nothing that corrects the huge damage Labour has already inflicted on the AI sector through the Chancellor's National Insurance Jobs Tax, which punishes every tech worker by £900 per person per year. So will the Secretary of State apologise today for making our tech workers take a wage cut and reducing their living standards? Labour's response is also full of aspirational dates for targets to be met, but there are no specific plans setting out how they will achieve these targets or how they will pay for them. So much for the Chancellor's iron grip on the public finances. So given there is no new funding, will the Secretary of State give the House a precise date for publishing his spending plans and confirm what funding will be cut from existing projects to pay for this plan's 50 new commitments? And Madam Deputy Speaker, why has the government created 2 more AI quangos today? The Prime Minister has announced or created a quango almost every week since coming to office. Today it's clearly the tech sector's turn. So can the Secretary of State reassure the House and the country that his 2 new AI quangos won't just tie up our tech sector in more red tape? Madam Deputy Speaker, last week the Chancellor fled the country, and as she headed east, our economy went south. Labour promised growth, but they delivered failure. They published an underwhelming plan 3 months late. They've punished our tech workers with national insurance jobs tax. They've saddled our tech sector with red tape and more quangos and aligned themselves with the EU when everybody else is saying no. Labour's delayed AI plan is analogue government in the digital age. Slow, uninspiring and not good enough for Britain. Our country deserves the best, but Labour have let Britain down again.
Secretary of State.
I'm kind of grateful for the honourable member's comments, but also I feel a little bit sorry for him because he praises Matt Clifford and his independent report because he is an astonishing person, and we should all as a House pay credit to somebody who has been so successful in the tech sector, out there in the real economy, and he gives up so much time for public service. I'm grateful for him. But he then goes on to talk about his report as if it's Labour's report, full of gobbledygook. It wasn't Labour's report. It was Matt Clifford's report. If he respected him, he wouldn't be attacking the very same report that he authored. I didn't author it. I've just looked at the recommendations, seen the logic in it, and seen the scale of the ambition that is contained within it, and said, yes. Yes, we share that sense of ambition, and we will deliver it too. And if he cared so much about compute, if he cared so much about the exascale computer, then his government, when he was in government, would have done something fundamental to delivering it. They would have allocated the money. Pretty basic stuff. If you're standing up in public and saying that we will deliver something, is actually to allocate the resources in order to deliver it. That project never existed because the money never existed. It was a fraud committed on the scientific community of our country, smoke and mirrors from the outset, and all I did was be honest with the public about the scale of the deceit that was inflicted on them. I corrected a wrong from the previous administration. And now today, we have a plan the task that was set for Matt Clifford wasn't to look at what government, particularly the previous government, was capable of, and then to try and design a programme that was limited by the scale of their chaotic abilities. I asked Matt Clifford, and the Prime Minister asked Matt Clifford, to look at the potential of our country if we get everything right when it comes to the digital infrastructure and opportunities of the future. And that is what his plan has done. And there are things that this government needs to do differently in order to realise the potential that is out there in our country. And that is what we have set about today by accepting all 50 recommendations. Madam Deputy Speaker, when they were in office, they did down our country. And now, in opposition, they do nothing but talk it down. And that is a shame.
Select Committee Chair Chiunwura.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I welcome the government's embracing AI and the Secretary of State's leadership in accepting every single one of Matt Clifford's recommendations. I hope he will be as receptive in accepting the recommendations of my committee. But does he agree with me that those who say that this plan is irrelevant to the challenges of economic growth and public sector financing that we face right now fundamentally misunderstand the nature of the opportunities that AI represents, its presence everywhere in our lives already, the frenetic pace of its implementation and its ability to drive growth. And most importantly, they misunderstand the nature of business confidence. Having a government that understands how to drive these opportunities into every home, business and public sector service in the land is a reason for business confidence.
Secretary of State.
I'm extremely grateful for her comments and the service of her and her committee. It was a privilege to go before her committee so soon into its formation, and I look forward to engaging.
Dell'Europa. Questo formato serve a rendere più pragmatico l'approccio intanto europeo e poi portarlo nella NATO e più veloce.
The creation of up to 13,000 jobs as a result of the investment today. That is business showing confidence in this government. And of course, many of the schemes announced today, the policies, will deliver into the short, the medium and into the long term. But that investment, coupled with our Regulatory Innovation Office, coupled with our planning reforms, will mean that shovels go into the ground quickly, and the jobs and the wealth that will be created by it will start paying dividends very soon.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson Victoria Collins.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Secretary of State for advance sight of the statement. We are all too aware of the economic malaise inherited from the previous Conservative government. Innovation in technology can help reverse years of decline, and the UK must be a world leader in quality innovation, from helping to save lives to boosting our economy. Good tech is good for business. That's why safety and AI innovation must go hand in hand. We must build trust and bring people along, not risk breeding suspicion or fear. As the Ada Lovelace Institute said this morning, there will be no bigger roadblock to AI's transformative potential than a failure in public confidence. The National Data Library would represent a major shift in public sector data handling. So how will the government ensure the necessary safeguards are in place? How will they ensure the public maintain confidence? While the focus on AI training is welcome, we must go beyond high-level skills. Not only are tech companies themselves calling out for technical skills, but AI is here now, shaping workplaces, services and lives. What is being done to ensure all sectors of society can access lifelong learning and training? Where is the strategy to address digital exclusion so no one is left behind? Furthermore, the text and data mining regime is a concern. Creatives will be dismayed by the government's acceptance of an opt-out system, and I would urge the government to reassess. The Prime Minister says our AI safety infrastructure is world-leading, but companies are calling for better funding access with better support from the British Business Bank, simpler ways of working with international talent, and indeed that better infrastructure from labs to internet access. How will you choose where those AI growth zones will be and ensure the benefits are shared across the UK? How will you ensure that small, innovative startups are not left behind? Finally, innovation must go hand in hand with safety and trust, with the right guardrails in place to promote safety by design. Only by doing so can we lead in quality innovation and ensure the benefits are felt across the UK.
State.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I'm grateful to the Honourable Lady for her constructive comments. She mentions trust. Trust is incredibly important in this whole agenda. We've seen too many times in the past where a fearful public fail to fully grasp the potential for innovation that comes out of the scientific community of the country. And we're not going to make that mistake. We understand from the outset that in order to take the public with us on this, we must inspire confidence. We must have safety assured from the outset. And that is a commitment that I make today. Because if people aren't safe, they aren't protected, and they don't feel safe, then they aren't going to confidently explore all the potential that AI and the digital world presents to them, their families, their communities, the businesses, and us as a country. And we must ensure that they do so. On intellectual property, there is a consultation that's underway right now, and the Honourable Lady, along with the rest of the public and all the interested parties, are very welcome to take part. Indeed, I implore that they do so. On growth zones present the most remarkable opportunity for parts of our country, and we want to make sure that not just every part of the country benefits from it, but those parts of the country who have experienced deindustrialisation in the past, who have suffered at the hands of the Conservative government over 14 years of stagnation, chaos, and poor strategic planning when it comes to our economy, that they benefit the most. In the coming weeks, we will announce the process by which we'll be selecting the future AI growth zones. I implore areas, regions, parts of our country who are interested in this to start looking at the direction of travel from this government, to see whether they can play a part in it, and whether they can get involved and start delivering AI growth zones in their area, because there are parts of this country that will really benefit, and we want to make sure that we have a really eager set of local authorities and areas to take advantage of it.
Dr. Alison Gardner.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Cities like Stoke-on-Trent, left behind by the previous Conservative government, could significantly benefit from targeted AI investment. AI growth zones are one such opportunity.
But also the bolstering of NATO's eastern flank. When President Putin launched his full-scale invasion of Ukraine, he thought he would make Europe weaker. Instead, France, Germany, Italy, Poland and the UK, indeed the entire NATO alliance, are working more closely together than ever before. This group is vital. The United Kingdom sees the E5 group as vital in strengthening European security and further supporting Ukraine. And as the war in Ukraine continues, there's never been a
cities like Stoke-on-Trent
for European allies to work together to put Ukraine in a position of strength on the battlefield and in any negotiations that may come. That's why continued European solidarity and support for Ukraine is so important. It is also why the United Kingdom would like to see the whole of Europe focus on increasing defence spending and stepping up support for Ukraine. For our part, the United Kingdom is committed to spending 2.5% of GDP on defence, and we're doubling down on our support for Ukraine. Before Christmas, the UK announced our latest £225 million package of military aid, and we've committed to provide £3 billion a year of military support each and every year for as long as it takes. In 2025, the UK will spend more than ever before on military support for Ukraine. In the autumn, I accompanied UK defence companies on a mission to Kyiv to help reinforce Ukraine's defence industrial base, which will not only be a powerful deterrent against Russian aggression, but also a powerful asset for Euro-Atlantic security. We've agreed today to do more together to continue to support Euro-Atlantic security and to continue to support Ukraine. I know that all our partners here today have also made incredibly important contributions to Ukraine's fight for a sovereign and free future. The security of every single European nation hinges on Ukraine's security. And as President Zelensky works for a just and sustainable peace, it is in the interests of every single European country and every democracy that our focus as defence ministers is to put Ukraine in the strongest possible position for 2025. The UK stands with our European friends in support of Ukraine for as long as it takes.
Bardzo dziękuję. Proszę Państwa, mamy czas na kilka konkretnych i zmierzchłych pytań w temacie konferencji. Bardzo proszę o przedstawienie się i zaadresowanie swojego pytania do pana ministra lub gości.
Dobry wieczór, Filip Gromik, Polska Agencja Prasowa. Pytanie zarówno do pana premiera Kosiniaka-Kamysza, jak i do pana ministra Pistoriusa. Kwestie wojskowe. Chciałem zapytać, kiedy możemy spodziewać się rozmieszczenia niemieckich systemów Patriot u nas w Rzeszowie. Wiemy, że ma być to styczeń, ale być może nazywa się już jakaś konkretna data. Bardzo dziękuję.
Szanowni Państwo, to dla nas jest zawsze dobra okazja też do wymiany bilateralnych uzgodnień. Od stycznia większą rolę w koordynacji nad bezpieczeństwem portu lotniczego w Jasionce, w Rzeszowie przejęło NATO, formując swoją misję. I tu nasi sojusznicy zgłosili swoją gotowość. Pierwszym, który tą gotowość zgłosił, był właśnie minister Pistorius, za co bardzo serdecznie dziękuję, do wsparcia, do ochrony. Jasionka to jest kluczowy port dla wsparcia walczącej Ukrainy, zarówno humanitarnego, jak i w każdym innym aspekcie. Ponad 90% donacji przechodzi przez Polskę, więc tym bardziej to sojusznicze wsparcie jest potrzebne. Uzgadniamy ostatnie szczegóły, ale może minister Pistorius zdradzi coś więcej, bo myślę, że mamy tutaj dobre informacje.
Ja, das kann ich sehr gerne machen. Wir wissen um die Bedeutung nicht erst seit gestern von Rzeszów als Knotenpunkt.
The great thing about AI and digital technology is it presents the kind of power into the hands of small businesses that until date has only been in reach of large businesses. That is a huge opportunity, and I hope business people running SMEs across the country grab it with both hands.
Sir John Whittingdale.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Prime Minister this morning spoke about the government wanting to
whether you will agree to more at the upcoming Hague summit in June. Will there be a new threshold? Are you open, for instance, to setting the threshold
a clear and trusted copyright regime, which is, I think...
Oui, évidemment que nous sommes pour, puisque c'est ce que fait déjà la France.
Text and data mining regime. Will the consultation look at potentially strengthening IP protection rather than weakening it?
Secretary of State.
I'm grateful for the question. He is a persistent advocate of the issues that he's raising today. But I do just gently say to him that if the current regime, legal regime, was so satisfactory, there wouldn't be so many court cases that are outstanding on this precise issue. Clearly, it is struggling to keep up with the time that we are living in. What we want to do is make sure that, yes, we do strengthen the rights of people creating, using creative industries and all of the great potential that has for individual copyrighted material. We want to strengthen it into the future, but get it right for the future. And that's why we're thinking about the needs, the demands and the opportunities of the future and making sure the settlement for those creating digital, AI and creative industries, products and services benefit equally as we go forward and have the assertion of the law.
Emily Darlington.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I am equally excited by the opportunities that being a leader in AI can bring to the people of the UK. He will know that Milton Keynes has been a leader right from its outset, with Bletchley Park creating the birthplace of machine learning and AI, but also Milton Keynes businesses are leading, especially in arts, services, transport, and the heart of our security services efforts are based there, as well as our skills base, including the Institute for Technology, Cranfield and the Open University. Will he meet with me and other AI champions from Milton Keynes to come up with actions to make this plan a reality for the people in Milton Keynes?
Secretary of State.
One of the things I've noticed visiting Silicon Valley 3 times in the last year is that the constituent parts that make Silicon Valley so magical when it comes to innovation and the upscaling of it exist here in the UK, but we're just not bringing it together and using it in the right way. She has just identified many of those constituent elements for Milton Keynes. They have a great champion in her because they do need to be coordinated better in order to fully exploit the opportunities of the future. I hope that I can be the partner in this government and my department can be the partner that she needs, and I look forward to meeting with her and her stakeholders.
Lisa Smart.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. I very much agree with the sentiments of the Secretary of State about the opportunities that AI present to my constituents in Hazel Grove, but with any opportunity often comes risk. So I wonder if the Secretary of State could update the House on any conversations he's had with colleagues from the Home Office about ensuring that police are properly trained and equipped and resourced to deal with crime that's brought about maybe by deep fakes, misinformation or disinformation.
Secretary of State.
She raises a very good point, and I can assure her that we are indeed in touch with the Home Office, as we are with every frontline public service department, to make sure that AI is used, the potential is embraced. But as I said before, safety has to be the first step, protection has to be the first step, so that the public can be reassured that we are using this technology wisely and in their interests.
Clive Efford.
Deputy Speaker, I welcome my right honourable friend's statement, and future AI is going to be central
hygiene products,
public
diapers,
services,
formula, and much more. Volunteers are working around the clock to organize donations, old and new.